This is Kim Caise. We're here in the Makerspace Coming to a Computer Near You webinar. And so these are ways that I'd like you to participate and join me today. I want to start off with a quote about unleashing creativity, because that's really the epitome of Makerspaces. And this is a quote from Jackie Gerstein's K-12 online conference video presentation that she created for the conference. And it's referencing an expert in Makerspaces and Maker Ed, that genre, by Dale Doherty. And it says, when a kid builds a model rocket, kite, or birdhouse, she not only picks up math, physics, and chemistry along the way, but she also develops her creativity. And that's what we're focusing on tonight, creative projects and ways to use that creativity and resourcefulness, planning abilities, curiosity, and engagement with the world around her. So that's pretty much sums up what the Makerspace and Maker Ed projects are. When you're preparing and planning to implement a program like this of a Maker Ed project initiative, there's several things that I want to point out for you to consider and think about along the way, and factors that you need to contemplate. And what is the learning objective in any project that you want your students to do? What actions are needed to meet that learning objective, and what tasks are they going to need to meet that objective? What tools are going to be needed in the project that the students might want to access or that you might have to have available? Is it just free reign, they decide on their own, or are you going to structure a particular project? So those are some things that you might want to think about. And are the learning tasks that the students are going to be performing, are they aligned to curriculum or the Common Core standards or the state standards? So those are things that you want to consider when you're planning a new project or a new initiative like this. And some of the challenges that you'll be facing are time, because you're going to have to take time away from test prep, and sometimes you're going to find some resistance along the way. And you have to find the cost for the materials or kits if you're going to use kits. And do you need computer equipment or a projector and those kinds of things? And will this fit with your curriculum? And 99% of the time you can find a way for all of these Maker Ed projects that we're going to talk about, and even more that we're not going to talk about that you'll find on my website. Are those aligned to the curriculum that you have to teach? And do you have the flexibility of using specific tools? Are the students able to use them? Do they know how to use them? And you also need to take into account the tech level. If you're going to be using something like a Raspberry Pi processor and those kinds of computer items. And then, of course, administrative resistance, because they're often going to be focused on test prep, and you're going to be taking away time from that. So that's something that you might need to find ways that you can explain how this is going to help your students be better prepared for your testing. And parental involvement. They may have resistance as well, thinking that you're just playing with tools in your classroom and you're not really teaching and the students aren't really learning, which is totally false. And when you're planning these things, this is a Bloom's taxonomy example using different apps on each level of the taxonomy. You do want to keep in mind and work up to projects where students are creating on their own. And these are some examples of things that you can do along the way to start out. You can start out slow and start out small, and then as your skills develop in implementing these types of projects and allowing your students to have their creativity unleashed and give them some free rein, you can refer to this taxonomy. And there are a lot of taxonomies out there that will help and guide you as well. This is just one example. And some of the activities that you can do with students include woodworking. They can do some etching in wood, metalworking, working with metal objects, welding, depending, and of course all of this depends on the age of your students and the safety precautions. And if you're going to do robotics or circuits, you have to have a computer available for them to be able to program some of those things. Textiles, you need to have those materials available. Digital fabrication, if you're going to use a 3D printer, sometimes those can be very expensive nowadays, but they've also come down in price, so they're becoming more accessible and available to classrooms. And if you're going to create audio and video, you need to have the software and the tools to be able to do that. Or if you're going to create EPUB books and digital storytelling items, again, you need the software or the apps and the devices to be able to record and film those types of projects. Some people don't consider the digital projects like audio and video creations MakerEd, and some people do. But I personally do, because the students are creating, and that's the epitome of the philosophy of a MakerEd and a Makerspace, where they create MakerEd projects. Some of the common tools that you'll see where students are making their own game boards, their own pieces, or using pieces from other games, and just giving them a box and say, here, create your own game with your own rules, your own game board. Sometimes they'll be doing woodworking with the hammer, nails, wood glue. Circuit kits you can purchase, or they can just create the circuits depending upon the level of the student, and create all types of things, and I'll show you a few things. Sewing, that appeals to both boys and girls, because some of the guys like to make different, like tool belts and things like that. Robotic kits, where the students program the robots, and you can even participate in the competitions that they have around. Most states have access to them. I know Austin, Texas has a big one, so if you're interested, you can check that out through TCEA, our state computer association. And then, of course, if you need it for different devices and projects, laptops and different recorders, cell phones, all electronic types of devices, and iPads you may want to incorporate in your classroom and have available for students to use. Shown on the screen are the different types of kits that you can purchase. Arduino, Makey, the 3D pens called the Doodler. Those are really great for students to use, a Gopher camera. These are all the name brand kits and items that you can purchase. You can purchase circuit kits like you see the students using right there on the screen to create and to power all types of things. This is where the creativity comes into play, because you can design activities that are endless and leave it up to the student of what they would like to create, just giving them the material. And one low-tech way to start doing some of these activities is to start with gamification. And why? All of the goal of MakerEd is to make learning fun. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're creating these types of projects and allowing your students to participate in these projects. For example, I have a wiki that I maintain, and on the game template page, you're welcome to utilize any of these. You'll see the different PowerPoint templates. You can start with those, but the reason I'm pointing those out and sharing those with you is that you can download those for your students and have your students create the questions and create the game after you've played it and showed them how it works. and how to change the questions and change the answers. I have several different ones there. You can explore those at a later time. And all of the links and resources that I'm sharing with you are found on my website at kimcaise.com in the live binder. So I encourage you to check that out. You can do so now, or you can do so after the session tonight. And let me go ahead and go on to the next slide. Some of the resources that you may want to start out with and refer to, Carl Kapp is a great author on gamification, and he's got several books that he's put out in publication that are just phenomenal. And then, of course, I mentioned the K-12 online conference. There were some Maker Ed and some gamification video presentations as part of that conference and that strand. So I encourage you to go back and review some of last year's video presentations. They'll give you some great ideas. Also, Jane McGonigal, she gave a great TED Talk, and she is just phenomenal, that TED Talk on gaming and gamification, and that's just a great way to start out. And then Steve Hargadon hosted a conference, a virtual conference, Gaming and Education. And so there's some of those and Maker Ed things in there. But the main one that the kids really like to do is Minecraft. And in Minecraft, students can build buildings. They can build items. I've heard students say, oh, I'm building this lava sword and I'm almost done. And I've talked to different students along the way. And the thing that they like the most are, yes, they do explore, and they do interact with other students within Minecraft, but they like to build different constructions and different types of buildings and all kinds of things, and take their characters on different explorations throughout Minecraft. And that's one of the great things about Minecraft. Even though it falls in the gamification category, you can consider it to be Maker Ed because you're allowing the students to be creative and to create different things within the game itself. And some other examples of Maker Ed projects, the Makey Makey, that's a circuit kit, and they've connected it to bananas, and when you press on the bananas, it plays a certain key. And so they have directions on how you can go about doing that with your students. So you don't have to know those things automatically. There are a lot of resources out there and a lot of experts in this genre that can help you, guide you along the way, and just doing your own research. Like the guitar here made with a touch board, or you can use a Raspberry Pi processor, just depending on how you want to create it and how you want to have the strings, if it's an electric guitar or if it's just a regular acoustic guitar. Regardless, you can create all types of things and musical instruments of your choice. There really is a lot that you can do with that. And this is an example of some woodworking and some actual constructing going on, building different types of like booths for carnivals and those types of things. You can, again, it's in the ideas that the students would come up with, and they're using some tools. And you'll see that they're a little bit older, maybe middle school, high school students, but you could do these with supervision. And if you're able to get parents to volunteer and to help out who are maybe more experts in this area, that's always a bonus when the parents get involved and they see the students having a good time and learning about angles and physics and measurements. So they'll see firsthand that the students are learning, even though they may look like they're just playing around. Same with this young lady on the right-hand side who's recording an audio recording. You can edit, the students can learn how to edit, they can learn how to use high-tech equipment to mix different sounds. They can use GarageBand to create actual songs, write songs, produce their songs. There's a lot that you can do within the audio-video component of MakerEd. And I got these pictures, a lot of these pictures from Carrie Young on her Library Makerspaces Pinterest page. She has so many great pictures and ideas. It's phenomenal. So you'll definitely want to check that out. I highly recommend checking out her Pinterest page. And if you'll click on the smiley face under your name, how many of you have ever watched the show Shark Tank? Thank you. I love the show because I love to see innovation, and they have children that come on there as well. But this company, Ruminate, thank you, Ruminate came on, and they started out with 2 kits of building, and it's gone way beyond that because one of the sharks on Shark Tank invested in their company, and so now they have different kits. And they originally appealed to girls. That's who their STEM projects were really designed for. But they found that boys were using them to build as well. It's just very colorful. And so they now market to both boys and girls in different STEM projects throughout the United States and the world. And it's all because they got an investment kick from Shark Tank, one of the sharks. And there are classrooms around the U.S. That are doing their own Shark Tank and having students come up with their own pitch for different items. And, you know, and I'm highly, if you haven't watched it, to check out one of the sessions and one of the shows and see how they do things. It gets kind of heated sometimes, but it's really, really interesting to see the things that people have come up with to make things better and to make our lives easier. And Ruminate, these kits, these building kits, was one of the items that was presented to the sharks on Shark Tank. So I thought that's great. And I saw on Twitter, I think it might have been Vicki Davis, but I'm not sure who it was, one of the educators who was having their own Shark Tank day in their classroom. So I thought that was really exciting, too, that they were adopting that model in their classroom for innovation as well. And some of you may be saying, I don't have money for these things, which most educators, we do say that, and that is true. The funding sources are limited, but you can go outside of that and create different wish lists with these different organizations. And Grant Wrangler and Grant Watch can help you watch for grants that you can apply for. Funding Factory is a new one that I heard about recently, where they take e-waste, electronic waste, like cell phones, old used ink cartridges, and then you send it in and they send you money to recycle it. And they recycle it and then send you the money. And so that's a great way for you to fund some of these projects that you're afraid that are going to just cost so much and you don't have the materials. Again, you start slow, use what you have, get some donations from parents or builders that aren't using some of the materials that they might have excess So you can always check with builders in your area if you're doing construction projects. But there are a lot of resources, and these are just a few to get you started. But you can do research and find ways to get donations solicited for your classroom as well. And 3D printing is really becoming a hot item. When I was at TCEA in Austin in February for our Texas Computer Educator Association conference, they were showing some of the different things that were printed with, like the printer at the top. That's called a MakerBot printer, and it prints on plastic. But they also have more advanced printers if you're doing a more advanced project, or you have older students who are doing more advanced items. You can print on wood, you can print on metal, and the MakerBot prints on plastic. And so these are some of the items that were printed. The top left is a Christmas ornament contest that Aaron Maurer was sponsoring. And that's just one of the examples that a student designed and printed that Christmas ornament. And the bottom right are some of the things that they printed as well. And they printed their own cell phone case, which I thought was really cool. The bottom left is the 3D pen, and that you can see the student tracing some patterns to create different geometric figures. And that's really where you can get into some of the math concepts and really dig down deep and help students conceptualize the different shapes in the lower grades or middle school. So there's a lot that you can do with the 3D printers and the 3D pens. There's just tons of things that you can do. Including what they're doing now is they're printing prostheses and different prosthetics. And like this is an example of one that has been printed, and they're making improvements all the time. They're not commonplace yet. I saw somebody had printed in plastic a liver, a functioning liver organ for our human bodies, but they said they were about 5 to 10 years out before it becomes commonplace. So with the material that they were printing on, they could create organs and different prostheses. So that's the future that our students are going to be involved in, and maybe experiencing some of these different devices made with a 3D printer. And an example of something that's really cool is this Google Cardboard. This is a kind of a template, and you can upload pictures from your computer or Facebook or Instagram or wherever your source is that you keep your pictures. And it's going to create with a Viewmaster slide, if you remember the old Viewmasters. And then out of cardboard, you can make the Viewmaster frame, and then they'll send you the slides that you purchase. Or you can purchase the cardboard and just kind of fold it. They've already got it cut out. You just fold it and stick in the different slides to view the different pictures. So I think that's really cool. You can add in whatever kind of picture you want. That'd be a great, on a side note, outside of school, like a great wedding gift or something like that. And then you can put in different pictures of your projects that are going on in your classroom for students to look at in the Viewmaster. So I thought that was really exciting and a really unique idea using the Google Cardboard. So these are all different MakerEd projects, and now I'd like to focus on what they call Makerspaces. And a Makerspace is just a place where students have the opportunity where they can explore things that they're interested in creating, use new tools and materials to them to develop some really creative and innovative projects. And it can be in your classroom, it could be in a simple room somewhere in the building. A lot of schools are adapting parts of their library, and I'll show you some of those pictures, and creating those areas in the, let me turn your chat on, and I apologize I didn't have your chat enabled. With the late start, I didn't get everything situated. So now you can chat, and if you have questions or comments, you can type those in the chat now. So back to what a makerspace is. A makerspace is a place where, just a place where they work on these types of projects, and you can do anything in that area that's creative and allowing students to be creative. And this is an example of one makerspace where they put the supplies down just in baskets, as you can see, simple supplies, and a workspace table for them to collaborate or work independently on different Maker Ed projects. And this is just one example. This one here, they're using what they call an ESD table. And the ESD is to help with the shock, to make sure that students aren't shocked, and the electrostatic, it's for an electrostatic discharge to prevent, as one of the safety precautions when they're working with circuits and high level of mechanics when at a higher level. So that's one thing to take into consideration when you're working with circuits, are what you're going to use to have the materials laid out and how you're going to store them. You can even have just a small section, just like this right here, where these students have built what looks like kind of a ramp or a tunnel for a car, probably of some sort, and they're reading, trying to maybe find out some information on their item. And you can just tell the students, you know, over in that particular corner, that's where the Maker Ed space is, the Makerspace, and that's where you can work on your projects. But it looks like in this library, the whole library is available, but it just depends on your setup and the space that you have and the materials that you have. You may want to do this just in your classroom and start out and have it be like a pilot program and prove that there is a wealth that you can learn. Or if you have space and buildings in different rooms, that's a great way to go as well. This one is, they have the materials. Looks like they're working with some rockets and stuff, and they have them in wagons, and so that helps with the mobility as well as storage. So you can kind of kill two birds with one stone with a wagon. You can drag it to different classrooms in different areas, as well as be able to have a way to store the materials when they're not in class and they're not working on their Maker Ed projects. And along the back wall, you can see how circled, they have tables laid out that the students can collaborate together or work independently, and they stored books, or they've stored books on maker type projects, as well as materials in the back. And this is coming from a Christie Elementary. They have a really unique website, and it's Christie Elementary in Plano, Texas. And their website, I believe, is in the live binder. That's on my website at kimcaise.com. And I encourage you to kind of check out their tour, their visual tour. They have some really exciting things going on. Here you can see the green screen that they have up for video projects to transform the different backgrounds, whether it's a still photo or a video. They have seating where they can plan together and talk about their projects. And here you can see some game boards that the students have created, or different patterned artwork that they might want to post up on the wall to decorate the makerspace. And you see some chairs there so that they can meet together and work together on a project, or read information and study and work on their projects together or independently. There's some great iPad apps for MakerEd projects, and I couldn't even begin to list all of them. But some of the main ones that I really like is StoryCorp, which is a digital storytelling type app. Haiku Deck and Prezi, those are presentation type apps. Twitcast and Photo Booth, you can create different video and still photo type things. The Twitcast, you can create a video and then put it right out on Twitter and share the work that's going on in the classroom. GarageBand, I've mentioned, where you can create music and you can edit it and change different parts of it and make it, scalable, where you can really get advanced with it. Green Screen is a great app that's easy to use. Lucy Gray did a blog post on using Green Screen. I've known about it for a while, but I haven't personally used it. But she said that it was really easy to use, and she enjoyed using that app. Explain Anything is an app that you can use to record video. And Otis and Socrative, those are different types of visual ways of assessing different parts of the learning process in your discussions or exit tickets. Those are apps that you can download, and they have a student version and a teacher version so that you can create that. And you can assess the MakerEd projects that way and get feedback on how the students enjoyed that project and how they enjoyed and felt creating their projects. And Tinker Play is a way that you can create 3D objects and print them. And it was really neat. If any of you saw Q Live, Hall Davison talked about an app that's made by AutoCAD, which also I believe makes Tinker Play, and animated a 3D image, just made it where you could turn it around and you can see it from all different angles of an image of a student. And that's really exciting, that the possibilities that the students have that with just a simple little app, the things that they can come up with to complement other types of MakerEd projects, or to use these apps independently. And one of the key factors to keep in mind is failure. And failure really isn't failure as part of the learning process. How many of you, if you click on the happy face or the hand, use and play Angry Birds? If you've played Angry Birds before, you'll notice that you'll try, and then you'll try it again and change certain things. This is similar to the thinking that goes along with Maker Ed projects, that a failure is not really a failure. It's as Jackie Gerstein says, it's a first attempt in learning, your first try. And so when you first start out, you may not be successful, but if you keep trying, you can create a prototype, and then you can try it and make it better and change it up if you need to change it. But keep trying and never settle for less than success. And so if failure is your first attempt, keep trying until you are successful. And that's one of the main tenets of Maker Ed projects. And I want to end with this quote from Charles Darwin, that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It's the one that's most adaptable to change. And so can you change the way that students learn and maybe change their attitudes about learning? You sure can with Maker Ed and Makerspaces. You definitely can. You can't solve maybe all of the problems on your campus, but if you implement this type of initiative, you can definitely create an environment where students are challenged and they thrive on learning, and they thrive on trying to make prototypes, and they thrive on coming to your classroom. And I used to love to hear, "It's time to go already, the bell's about to ring." You know, you don't always hear that, especially when you're teaching, a complicated math class. But I would hear quite often, "It's time to go." And so that's very rewarding. But that comes with when you're willing to take risks and try and change things with your students. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm Kim Caise. That's my email address. If you have questions, you can type them in the chat, or you can always email them to me. On my website, I will have the slides. I have the live binder, and I will have the MP4 of this session posted to my website at kimcaise.com. And there's a feedback form. I'm going to share that with you as well and put it in the chat. I'd like you to fill it out. I know that we had some technical difficulties. The room wasn't available at first, but eventually they got everything worked out. So things aren't exactly as smooth as they could have been. And hopefully you have your chat permissions available. So that if you do have a question, you can type that in the chat. And that's the link to the feedback form. And I will probably end up doing this one again, since several people may have tried and given up and not been able to attend. But you can find out all of my resources on my website at kimcaise.com. So the chat is now on. They weren't on before, so I do apologize. I had the wrong link active. But if you have a question, feel free to email it to me or type it in the chat. And I'm sorry that we didn't have the chat available throughout the session. That was, I just started real quickly once it opened so that people would stay. So thank you so much for joining me this evening. I would love to get your feedback on the session, and forgive me for the technical difficulties, but have a great evening, and I will see you soon. Thank you very much for attending tonight. No problem, Trish. Thanks for coming in.